speaking from the second canto, 9th chapter, verse number 10. Now, I just warn you, it's a very, very long purport. The purport might actually hear the class today. This is a good thing. I'm sure Papa will be in class. So, we might see how we go, whether we read in one go, or we see how many are still awake and may comment along the way. Maybe do some quizzes. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nayam Namaskritam Navacharam Navotamam Devim Sadatim Vyasam Tatur Jayam Mudiraya Nastapadeshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Samurtam Shloke Bhakti Bhakti Naishtaki. So this is Bhavatate Yata Rajastamastayo Sattam Shamishrunacha Kalavikrama Najattamaya Kim Uttapare Hare Anugata Jata Surasurachitam Bhavatate Jata Rajastamastayo Sattam Shamishana Kalavikrama Manjattamaya Kim Uttapare Hare Anurata Jata Surasurachitam Bhavatate Jata Rajastamastayo Sattam Shamishana Kalavikrama Manjattamaya Kim Uttapare Hare Anurata Jata Surasurachitam Yatmaya Kim Uttapare Hare Bhavatate Yata Rajastamastayo Sarvam Surishana Chakalavikrama Yatmaya Kim Uttapare Hare Anurata Jata Surasurachitam. Ladies, Vaishnavis. Bhavatate Yata Rajastamastayo Ram Shamishana Kalavikrama Yatmaya Kim Uttapare Hare Anurata Jata Surasurachitam. Come on. What's the word? Bhavatate. Prevail. Yatra. Wherein. Raja Tamaha. The modes of passion and ignorance. Ayo. Of both of them. Satnam. The mode of goodness. Cha. And. Mishram. Miksha. Na. Never. Cha. And. Kala. Time. Vikrama. Influence. Na. Neither. Yatra. Therein. Maya. Illusionary. External energy. Him. What? Uta. There is. Apare. Others. Hare. Of the personality of Godhead. Anurataha. Devotees. Jatra. Wherein. Sura. By the demigods. Asura. And the demons. Asitaha. Worshipped. The translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Om Ganati Nandashan Ganam Sankara Sakshi Swami Tandam Tasmai Shri Guru Deva. So hang on to this one. So packs up purport. Very, very wonderful. Translation. In that personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influencing goodness. There is no predominance of the influence of time. So what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees repeatedly in that personal abode of the Lord. The material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence in goodness. There is no predominance of the influence of time. So what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees. Purport. The kingdom of God, or the atmosphere of the Vaikuntha nature, which is called the Tripavibhuti, is 3 times bigger than the material universes and is described here as also in the Bhagavad Gita in a nutshell. This universe, containing billions of stars and planets, is one of the billions of such universes clustered together within the compass of the Mahatattva. And all these millions and billions of universes combined together constitute only 1/4 of the magnitude of the whole creation of the Lord. You know that? Puts things into perspective a little bit. Want to repeat that? I will come along the way because we're all purple. So, this one universe has billions and trillions of planets. And this one universe has billions and trillions of universes. And that's only 1/4 of the creation. Got that? So it makes us quite... puts us into a proper understanding of who we are as very tiny little minute living entities. There in the spiritual sky also, beyond this sky, are the spiritual planets under the names of Vaikuntha. And all of them constitute 3/4 of the entire creation of the Lord. God's creation are always innumerable. Even the leaves of a tree cannot be counted by man, nor can the hairs on his head. However, foolish men are puffed up with the idea of becoming God himself, though unable to create a hair on their own bodies. Unable to create a hair of their own bodies. Okay. Man may discover so many wonderful vehicles of journey, but even if he reaches the moon by his much advertised spacecraft, he cannot remain there. The same man, therefore, without being puffed up as if he were the God of the universe, abides by the instructions of the Vedic literature, the easiest way to acquire knowledge in transcendence. The easiest way to acquire knowledge in transcendence. So, let us know through the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam of the nature and constitution of the transcendental world beyond the material sky. In that sky, the material qualities, especially the modes of ignorance and passion, are completely absent. The mode of ignorance influences the living entity to the habit of lust and hankering, and this means that in the Vaikuntha Lokas, the living entities are free from these two things. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Brahma-Bhuta stage of life, one becomes free from anchoring and lamentation. Therefore, the conclusion is that the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are all Brahma-Bhuta living entities, as distinguished from the mundane creatures who are all compact in hankering and lamentation. When one is not in the mode of ignorance and passion, one is supposed to be in the mode of goodness in the material world. Goodness in the material world also at times becomes contaminated by touches of the modes of passion and ignorance. In the Vaikuntha Loka, it is unalloyed goodness only. I'm still here? We're not even halfway. So anyways, we'll talk about this a little bit, because there's two very important points how to understand knowledge beyond our conception. Because if we're listening to what's being discussed here, there's descriptions of the spiritual world, and we're going to have quite a lot of verses coming up on this subject, which is very, very wonderful. But what Prabhupada mentions is the common man flat out trying, it's impossible to count the leaves in that tree just over here, or to speak of comprehending something that's beyond this universe, all the other universes, and further on. So this is only possible, and Prabhupada makes a very good point, is simply by accepting the authorities of the revealed Vedas can one understand these things. There's no other way that's possible. And if you've never been to Paris, you've never seen anything or heard anything about Paris, unless someone from Paris comes in and tells you, you're never going to understand what Paris looks like. So these transcendental literatures are given by authorized personalities, liberated souls, so they come down in this line. And this is considered the most perfect way of receiving knowledge, rather than directly, prataksha, directly perceiving, or even speculation or coming up with theories like many scientists will do. But this is ultimately cheating, because it's not possible. The living entity have defects, have 4 defects. They have the propensity to cheat, to be subject to delusion, imperfect senses, and number 4 is propensity to make mistakes. Should be forgetfulness as well, but anyway. So we have to understand that these personalities that are conditioned into the world, they don't deliver this knowledge. This knowledge is given by personalities that are free of these 4 defects. Srila Prabhupada was not trying to cheat us. Srila Prabhupada was not an illusion, or he was completely a pure Vya medium. So knowledge comes down and it's received. So Prabhupada makes a very important point. This is the easiest way to understand higher things, instead of trying to figure it out in that little tiny little brain, because it's not possible. It's far beyond our senses. Then you may say, well, then I have to have some sort of faith. Yes, there's some sort of faith, but we have faith in so many things. That when we drive down the road, we have faith that the guy coming down towards us is going to stay on that side of the white paint. That takes a lot of faith. He's doing 100 kilometers an hour. So faith is applied in all stages of life. But faith in spiritual life is built. It's built on knowledge and realization. It's not just whimsical faith or sentimental faith. Because ultimately, Krishna says in the Gita that we do receive direct perception. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, in that famous verse in the 9th chapter of the Gita, that Raja Vidya, Raja Guryam, that ultimately prataksha gamam dharamam, that we receive direct perception of the self. Because ultimately, through purification and knowledge, it goes beyond faith, we have direct realization. So it won't be just knowledge and a little bit of understanding, it will be pure realization. So that comes in time. I was reading, yes, Krishna reveals himself. I was reading that pastime of the Shamataka jewel, and Krishna fighting with Jambavani. Everybody here read Krishna book? Most people. So it's interesting, they were fighting for 28 days, but it's explaining there, Papa explains that Krishna became very pleased by his fighting, by his service of fighting, because Krishna likes to fight. He also mentions in there that the propensities and instincts of human beings, Krishna has those very same things. So that propensity to fight is in Krishna. But because Krishna became pleased and he revealed himself to Jambavan was finally able to recognize him as the Supreme Lord. So this is the process, it's a process of revelation by hearing and serving. During that we are hearing will become realized in good time. It's just a matter of applying the process, not a mental process, intellectual process. Because if you look at the Hare Krishna movement, we have people who join the movement from all walks of life. Some that have barely any education at all, and some that have PhDs on top of PhDs, but all are able to come to the same platform of understanding, because this process is not a material process. It's a process of purification and revelation that's given by Krishna from within the heart by the mercy of the spiritual master and devotees in the process. I'll continue reading because everyone seems to be a little bit more awake. We'll go to the second paragraph of 4 paragraphs. The whole situation there, spiritual world, is one of freedom from the illusory manifestation of the external energy. Although illusory energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, illusory energy is differentiated from the Lord. The illusory energy is not, however, false, as claimed by the monist philosophers. The rope accepted as a snake may be an illusion for a particular person, but the rope is a fact, and the snake is also a fact. The illusion of water and the hot desert may be illusion for the ignorant animal searching for water in a desert, but the desert and water are actual facts. Therefore, the material creation of the Lord may be an illusion to the non-devotee, but to a devotee, even the material creation of the Lord is a fact, as the manifestation of his external energy. But this energy of the Lord is not all. The Lord has his internal energy also, which has another creation known to be the Vaikuntha Lokas, where there is no ignorance, no passion, no illusion, no past and present. With a profound knowledge, one may be unable to understand the existence of such things of the Vaikuntha atmosphere, but that does not nullify its existence. That spacecraft cannot reach these planets does not mean that there are no such planets, for they are described in the revealed scriptures. As quoted by Srila Jiva Goswami, we can know from the Narada Pancharatna that the transcendental world or Vaikuntha atmosphere is enriched with transcendental qualities. These transcendental qualities, as revealed through the devotional service of the Lord, are distinct from the mundane qualities of ignorance, passion and goodness. Such qualities are not attainable by the non-devotee class of men. In the Padma Purana, Uttarakanda, it is stated that beyond the 1/4 part of God's creation is a 3/4 manifestation. The marginal line between the material manifestation and the spiritual manifestation is the Viraj river, and beyond that Viraj, which is transcendental current flowing from the perspiration of the body of the Lord, there is a 3/4 manifestation of God's creation. Everyone still here?
Yes.
Okay. How big is that? What part of the creation is that? Okay. 3/4. This part is eternal, everlasting, without deterioration, and unlimited, and it contains the highest perfectional stage of living conditions. In the Sankhya Kaumudi, it is stated that unalloyed goodness or transcendence is just opposite to the material modes. All living entities there are eternally associated without any break, and the Lord is the chief and prime entity. In the Agama Purana also, the transcendental bodies is described as follows. The associated members there are free to go everywhere within the creation of the Lord, and there is no limit to such creation, particularly in the regions of the 3/4 magnitude. Since the nature of that region is unlimited, There is no history of such association, nor is there an end to it. Still there? It's a very packed up purport. So much information. Okay, I'll read the last paragraph, which is the smallest one, and then we'll try and say a couple of words. The conclusion may be drawn because of the complete absence of the mundane qualities of ignorance and passion. There is no question of creation nor of annihilation. In the material world, everything is created and everything is annihilated, and the duration of life between the creation and annihilation is temporary. In the transcendental realm, there is no creation and no destruction. Thus, the duration of life is eternal, unlimitedly. In other words, everything in the transcendental world is everlasting, full of knowledge and bliss without deterioration. Since there is no deterioration, there is no past, present and future in the estimation of time. It is clearly stated in this verse that the influence of time is conspicuous by its absence. The whole material existence is manifested by actions and reactions of elements, which make the influence of time prominent in the matter of past, present and future. There is no such actions and reactions of cause and effects there. So the cycle of birth, growth, existence, transformation, deterioration, annihilation, the six material changes, are not existent there. It is the unalloyed manifestation of the energy of the Lord without illusion as experienced here in the material world. The whole Vaikuntha existence proclaims that everyone there is a follower of the Lord. The Lord is the chief leader there, without any competition for leadership, and the people in general are all followers of the Lord. It is confirmed in the Vedas, therefore, that the Lord is the chief leader and all other living entities are subordinate to Him. For only the Lord satisfies all the needs of all other living entities. Krishna. Translation: the personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence in goodness. There is no predominance of the influence of time, so what to speak of the illusionary external energy? You cannot enter that region. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees. So this, very early on in Srimad Bhagavatam, we're now being introduced to the spiritual realm. And I think yesterday's verse and today's verse deals with the difference between both places. Two main points that are brought up here is Vaikuntha versus the material energy, the temporary material energy is the material modes of nature. Where the living entities in this material realm, temporary realm, are constantly under the harassment of the modes of material nature. Anybody feel the influence of the modes at any time? What's it feel like? How would you describe the modes of material nature? What is it? Awesome? Awesome, yes. Close, I'm looking for a particular word. It sounds very similar to awesome. I mentioned the Bhagavad Gita by Arjuna, the 3rd chapter. He asks a question to Krishna, how are we impelled to do things we don't want to do, and it seems like we're forced. So the material modes of material nature are actually forced. They force the living entities to act in certain ways. And Krishna answers that question. It says that Kama Resha Kora Resha Raja Gunas, by the force of the modes of passion, is forced to act in certain ways. And if you study Bhagavad Gita in chapter 14, Krishna gives so many examples of how the material modes affect the living entities in so many ways. And it's important knowledge to study, because then you can, by your activities and your consciousness and your mentality, you will understand what mode of nature you're influenced by. And the idea is to transcend these modes. Because at least to come to the point of goodness, because the mode of goodness is a stepping stone to pure goodness, which is what's been described as purport. In the spiritual world, there's no influence of these lower modes. The force of living entities, in other words, the living entities are freed up there. There's no, Prabhupada mentions, no hankering, no lamenting. The material is always full of hankerings, wantings, desires, attachments, mode of passion. Mode of ignorance is like pretty much inertia, laziness, sleepiness. This is mode of ignorance. You don't get a lot done in mode of ignorance. We often speak about this down at the Bullet program. In the mode of goodness, you have both determination and patience. And Prabhu will tell you about patience down there. He's experiencing it at the moment. It can be very frustrating. You're dealing with stubborn animals that don't want to do what you want to do. So you have to become very patient and very determined. So that's considered mode of goodness. Both determination and patience. In passion, you only have determination. Stuff it. You give up, but plenty of drive initially. And then mode of ignorance, you have plenty of patience. You got all day. I'll be there soon, I've just got to finish watching the cricket and I'll come out and mow the grass, you know. Like that, I'll be there soon, I'll be right, you know. So this mode, plenty of patience, no determination, no ignorance. So these things are continuously affecting the living entities, 8,400,000 species of life, and there are all those 8.4 million species of life are actually a blend of those three modes of nature, Prabhupada explains. All blended up. And he gives a numerical analogy. It doesn't take all the way through. It does say 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 9 is 81. And if you keep going, you can get up. It's like colours, you know, the 3 primary colours. You can get pretty much unlimited varieties of colours and shades. So similarly, mature modes are like that. That Krishna says that under the influence of those modes of an entity, he thinks, you know, he's the doer of activities, but actually they're being carried out by the modes. So we're actually under the control of the material energy at all times, knowingly and unknowingly. I'm not talking about devotees here. Devotees systematically transcend the modes in time. So depending what stage you're up to, the modes will have less influence on you, or you'll at least be aware of the modes and go, so look, I'm in the mode of passion, I should calm down and keep this out a bit clearer. Or if I'm in the mode of ignorance, I'll try and snap out of it, like that. And we have one of the 4 facilities for snapping out the modes of material nature. We can chant and take shelter of the holy names of the Lord, which immediately transcend the living entity from the modes of material nature. Uplift us. So the spiritual world is none of these things are there. As Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the living entities are free to go anywhere they want within the creation. You know? Now we think we're free in this material world. We're not free. You see according to your karma, you're restricted. Prabhupada mentions here these glorified advertised spacecraft that try and go to higher places in this universe, but they don't go very far and get much done. And Prabhupada says they always have to come back. They can't stay there. They don't have the visa. It's like you have to have a visa to go. Now visas have become very complicated with Corona and so many problems that the world's having. It's not that easy to go where you want. Right? Isn't it 2 years ago you could say, go where I want, jump on a plane and go to Bali or wherever, but now even that's been restricted somewhat. And then other people, according to the karma, they have less facilities, and you see very poor living entities that are suffering so much that they jump on boats trying to escape their karma. They're suffering in a particular country, so, and they're war-torn or economically collapsed, whatever they may be, corrupt governments, and they're so desperate for a better life, but their karma goes with them and they suffer so much on these journeys, and some of them drown at sea, or they end up in places like Australia where we lock them up for almost forever. So yes, so it's not that easy. In the material world we are restricted by the material energy, by the material modes and our personal karma. And no such thing in the spiritual world. The living entity can do whatever they want, whenever they want. There's no restrictions. But I'm trying to become a Hare Krishna. It's full of restrictions and rules and regulations. Isn't that going to be the same in the spiritual world? I'll have to just do what my ashram in Vegas tells me to do, my temple president, and get out of bed every day if I really want to sleep. Is it going to be like that? So we're practicing spiritual life now. But no, it's not like in the liberated style you don't have the material body for starters. That's the thing you're trying to get up in the morning. That thing doesn't want to move. It's stubborn. And what to speak of the mind that sits inside that gross body. It's also very conditioned and puts up a bit of a fight constantly all day long. It's trying to harass us in so many ways. So spiritual world, you don't have these two things. You don't have the material modes of nature. There's no hankering, no lamenting, no desires for separate enjoyment. So even though you have the full freedom, your tendency when you do take up that freedom is for the pleasure of the Lord. And it's described in the Bhagavatam that the Krishna Dutas, the residents of Vaikuntha, they do take off on little journeys. And a lot of them, they come to these material universes, and they're particularly looking to assist and serve entities in the material that are chanting the holy names. Isn't it? Sometimes some people have this idea of guardian angels. The Vaikuntha Vasis are constantly coming to this realm. This is liberated living entities that live in the Vaikuntha planets. And we have a very clear example in the 6th canto with Ajamil. Isn't it? Ajamil was just lying on his bed, about to die, and he called out Narayan, the holy name of the Lord, and within instantly these Vishnu were there alongside the Yamadurus. Instantly. So how do they get this so quick? They're there, floating around, and they're very attracted to living entities that are chanting. So it's good to know they're there to help us along. So these are examples that are given in the Bhagavatam of the free movement of the living entities. Nothing that's mentioned here, and this I think you spoke briefly on the time factor yesterday, Vaishnavi, and you said time is conspicuous by its absence, correct? Anybody heard that before? Time is conspicuous by its absence, and then we shorten that to there's no time in the spiritual world. You heard that also? Anybody? And that's quite incorrect, especially if you read this verse and other verses. Srila Prabhupada says again, and this is a word that we leave out all the time. Srila Prabhupada says indeed the influence of time is conspicuous by its nature. It's one of the most misquoted quotes in Srila Prabhupada's books. It's not time is conspicuous by its absence, it's the influence of time. And so it's a very slight and quite a big difference in this. So it doesn't say that time's not in the spiritual world, it says the influence. And it's referring to the influence of time in this world. As we know, time in this world is quite cruel. Time waits for no man. It passes fast. It takes away, it diminishes, it destroys, it decays. And ultimately it annihilates and wipes out the whole creation. So time is the energy of the Lord. Kalashmi, time Krishna says, time I am, the destroyer of the world. So that influence of time, that is what's absent in the spiritual world. That's what's conspicuous by its absence, that influence, that time manifests in this world, not time itself. Is that clear? I'll have to clear that because it's, like I said, it's one of the most misquoted and misunderstood things. Time. So what is time in the spiritual world then? Time in the spiritual world, Kala Shakti is a servant of the Lord. It simply enhances the pastimes. It serves in the pastimes. It doesn't. Time is eternal in the spiritual world. So there's no diminishing. Our spiritual bodies remain always the same. Our atmosphere, our residences, everything remains completely unchanged and pure. So the time doesn't have the same influence in the spiritual world. That's why sometimes said there's no time in the spiritual world. But there's no time in the spiritual world like time in the material world. Two different influences, two different actions. By the same energy, they're both Krishna's energy. But Maya works in a particular way in the material world, keeps the living into illusion, so they forget Krishna, and they can artificially attempt to enjoy without Krishna. That's Maya's job. And Yoga Maya, which is the source of Maya in the spiritual world, works to enhance the spiritual relationships and activities and pastimes in a very sweet and wonderful way. So same energy, but they act in different ways. So time is the same, so as long as we understand that. I'll give you some examples of time in the spiritual world, so I've heard in recent lectures. For those of you tuned into Indira Maharaj, she was given a very nice example of Srimati Radharani. They have very sweet relationships in the spiritual world, but in the social gatherings, she's not able to interact with Krishna directly. So it's done in secretive ways. So one way it's done is through Srimati Radharani's makeup. And she'll paint perhaps a peacock on a cheek that will indicate to Krishna, because Krishna will get a quick glimpse. That will indicate that we're going to meet at the place where we're talking about peacocks. And it might have 3 dots next to it. It means bring 3 of your associates with you. Or I actually I'm going to bring 3 of my associates with you. And she'll wear 3 little earrings. And each earrings represents a time frame of 24 minutes. So if she's wearing 3 24s is 72 minutes. So I'll meet you, Krishna, at that place where we discuss the peacock. 3 of my associates will come along and we'll see you in 72 minutes. Very nice, huh? So time is spun. And so there's a reference to time there, there's a time period. And that heightens the sweetness and anticipation, because you've got to wait that long until that time comes. Even during I was explained, even during the day, sometimes Krishna will go off and meet his girlfriends, and time is flexible. It's different in the material world. When they meet up at lunchtime, that time span is 5 hours. Huh? At the very same time, for the cowboys, it's just a few minutes. Very same amount of time. That can't happen in the material world. It's either one or the other. Spiritual, 5 hours and a few minutes could be at the same time. Because it's explained that the cowboys have to wait any longer, they just couldn't handle it. They'd go looking for Krishna, they'd find Krishna with the gopis, and they'd sort of interrupt the whole pastime there. So for them, they feel the time different. It's quite incredible. The time is, and even we hear when in the Krishna book, in the Rasa Lila, that went on for 1 night for Lord Brahma. Right? Which for us would have been over 10 hours. For other residents on this planet, but the Rasa Lila went on for an incredible amount of time. If you look at examples in the material world, anyone familiar with the King Muchukunda in the Krishna book? So King Muchukunda was a very powerful, very pious king of bygone ages. And again, back to the visa process, if you're more spiritually, materially qualified, you've got more access to travel and go to other places. So he was able to go to the high planets. He was actually invited by King Indra there to help. They were having a big battle with the demons at the time. So this great powerful king, he was so powerful, he was able to be called and go and fight. He fought for a very long time, quite a long time. And he became very tired, and then the battle was over, they were victorious, and he wanted to return home. And they had to say, well, your home ain't there anymore. Because the time in the high planets is different. Remember when Lord Brahma stole the cars from Krishna and the cowboys? He came back in a moment, but almost instantly he realised it's not a good idea. And that was in this realm, that was 1 whole year that went by. And it was 1 moment for him. So the time in the higher planets is different than the time on this realm. Actually, so if you spend time there, a long time goes past here. So that's informing your family, your kingdom, many, many generations, they're all gone. It doesn't exist anymore. You're not even known, no one knows who you are. So that's the effect of time in the material world. It deteriorates, it takes away. So in a short time when he was fighting, he lost all that time that he would have had in the lower realm of this planet. In this case, I won't tell the whole story. It was to his great fortune, because through this episode he was able to meet Krishna face to face. But there's another story in the Krishna book also that sometimes we don't think about the time factor in this, but who knows the time when Krishna and Arjuna had to go and find the missing children of the Brahmana. Remember that one? So it's quite interesting because they kept disappearing. So Arjuna was ready he offered to guard the mother, and if any newborn child goes missing again, I'll commit suicide. I'll give up my life for not being able to protect you. Anyway, another child was born and disappeared. So Arjuna was ready to enter the fire, and Krishna came along and said, no, come over, I know where they are. And it's explained they traversed through this whole universe, Krishna and Arjuna. Huh? Not only did they travel through the end of the universe, they travelled through the coverings of the universe. This is a very long journey, and they came to the outside of the universe. Imagine that. And Mahavishnu was there lying there, because all the universe is emanating from him. And those children, Mahavishnu had taken those children simply So he did a darshan of Krishna and Arjuna. He personally wanted to get the personal darshan, so he forced them to come up there. So the reason I'm telling this story is because we know when you're outside the universe, what's happening to Mahavishnu? What is he doing? And what's happening when he's breathing? So many universes are coming out. I think I wrote it down just so I can find it. I might not have it, but anyway. Basically, yes, three quarters of a second or so is equal to a whole lifetime of this universe, a lifetime of Brahma. So that's how much time is going on up there while they're Mahavishnu. But somehow or other, when Krishna and Arjuna come back, they come back exactly the same time where that Brahma was still there present and awaiting the return of their children. And that's pretty much, if you think about it, that's quite remarkable. So time has no effect on Krishna. That's one of his energies there, is serving him. They don't control him like control us. So when Muchakundu went away to the high planet, which is not even the other side of the universe, he lost thousands and thousands of years when he passed in his personal time, where he would have liked to have gone back and together with his family again, perhaps. But when Krishna goes right out of the universe with Arjuna and comes back, time stands still, at least for them. Quite incredible. So I want to discuss time a bit because it is an interesting fact that the spiritual world acts differently. It acts to increase the pleasure pastimes. There's no present, past, and futures mentioned here, which is very interesting. There's only pastimes that go on in the spiritual world continuously. If you look up the dictionary of pastimes, it means enjoyable activities constantly. In the material world, you've got to wait some time to get a result. You'll maybe save up for your vacation, and then at some point in the future, you may get some result. But in the spiritual world, there's no such thing. It's constant pastimes. And if you look up the dictionary of pastime, like I said, it's your favorite activity. It's not limited by time. And it's like Uncle Bob, he said the pastime is going to the pub on Friday night. That's what he wants to do. So in the mundane world, people have their pastimes, but they're not transcendental. They're usually quite mundane, and they're not lasting. They're not eternal. They don't continue. So Krishna and his devotees are continuously, eternally undergoing pastimes, pleasurable activities from one to the other, to another one. And Krishna goes incarnate here and then other pastimes. It just goes on endlessly. And we know this because Ananta Sesh is trying to recite all these pastimes. And he has multiple mouths and hoods, and he's been reciting Krishna's activities and glories forever. He still can't keep up. He still can't keep up. So some people say, what do we do in the spiritual world? There's unlimited varieties. This is in Vaikuntha, what is the Goloka. Goloka is another topmost realm of the spiritual world where Krishna personally resides and herds his cows every day. You think, oh, herding cows every day, is that it? That it's full of nectarian pastimes and wonderful activities. They're enjoying so much their association in pure, unalloyed devotion. The medium in the spiritual world is praying. That's how everybody interacts. There's no other. This is why you've got to come to the platform and do devotional service, because you can't interact with Krishna on any other level. That's how he relates to us. So for us to be able to relate to him, we've got to come to a pure, spiritual, unalloyed mood of servitude that's not contaminated by anything else of this world. Then you'll be able to associate with Krishna directly. Otherwise, it's called mixed devotional service. And mixed doesn't quite mix it. So I thought that was some good little one there. But anything is quite transcendental. Even Prabhupada was asked, you might have heard this recently, Prabhupada was asked, are there any mosquitoes in the spiritual world? What would you answer? Steph, is there mosquitoes in the spiritual world? And scratch. No? Prabhupada said yes. That's what he said, but they don't sting, they sing. That's the difference. Every entity in the spiritual world is a pure unalloyed devotee. Actually, this is a bit for the reality of America. I wrote these things down, I had no idea what I'd written. Here we go. This is from the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, verse 139, commentary by Srila Sanatana, verse 1. In Vaikuntha, God commands all many animals like cows, horses, and elephants, birds like doves, and cuckoos, trees, bushes, and creepers like mandaras and kundas, and seemingly inauspicious creatures like insects and worms. It would have been wrong to think that these were inferior living beings, born into bodies covered by the mode of ignorance. They were not degraded like the living beings in the material world. They assumed bodies made of the element earth. So even the so-called lower creatures in the spiritual realm are all transcendental pure devotees. Every part of the spiritual world is transcendental energies. There's no matter there. You know, Mother Yasoda's bucket is a person. It has a personality. It's fully conscious. The ropes that we hear in the Damodar Lila, they're fully conscious ropes. It's explained when Krishna unties one of the cars in the mornings. He does cheeky things. What happens if you untie a car? He goes and drinks all the milk, and when you go and milk the cow, there's hardly anything left. So Krishna does things like that. But it's explained when he touches that rope, all the other ropes in Mother Yasoda's house, they sense it. They go, ooh, Krishna's touching one of our cousins. And they feel great thrill. They're fully conscious. There's no dead matter in the spiritual world. And all those living entities are there simply to give pleasure to the Lord. So it's not like this place at all. And that's why the Damodar Lila is so wonderful, because all the ropes of Vrindavan came together and got to serve Krishna personally. Such a nice pastime. They're all hankering for that association. And because when you're in Shantaras, that neutral state of relationship with Krishna, you have to be engaged by other devotees. Mother Yasoda's sari has to be, she gets to serve Krishna when Mother Yasoda wears that sari. And Krishna's enwrapped in that sari. And she enjoys it, and it's explained that she feels some of the bhakti of Mother Yasoda also, that sari. Anyway, I'm getting into a very lofty discussion here. But anyway, this is the Srimad Bhagavatam verses we're up to now. They're out of the spiritual world. So we tend to speak about the spiritual world. We like to compare it to the material world, because there's no comparison. And Krishna releases this information for us and performs these pastimes simply to attract us. Because when you hear these things, you start, and this is nice, I'd like to go there and be there. And then you take up your natural position as a devotee, and automatically you're reinstated, because we don't belong here. I'm so sorry, I thought it was going to be a short class today, because I didn't have much to say, but anyway, it's 8:30. So any very quick questions? You've got a minute and a half, or comment. Ajita Prabhu, the microphone was there, got to switch it on with a little doodad thing on the side. See the switch on the ground? Take that with you.
It's descriptions of the time. And the time in the material world is cyclic, the time in the spiritual world is linear. So there is past, present, and future. But when it's cyclic, it means two things. One is that the time makes, like on the clock, goes around and comes back. So there's birth, death, old age, and then you come back again and take birth. That's a cyclic time. The other aspect of cyclic time is that whenever you obtain something, you have to give up something. That's the feature of the time in the natural world. You can't just take stuff and keep it forever. So when you make some money, you have to pay, and then you get something else. So there's the two effects of cyclic time in the natural world. In the spiritual world, the time is linear, which means when you acquire something, this is where the past, present, and future gets confusing. You keep it, and then you acquire more, and then you get more. So therefore, the spiritual world is never ending and forever accruing. So that's the difference between the time in the material world, which is cyclic, and therefore the clock indicates that, and the time in the spiritual world is linear. This is why the scholars cannot explain the Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is on a linear time, which means you keep accumulating things and you don't lose anything. And they try to do it chronologically according into the cyclic time in the material world, therefore they get confused and say silly things.
Very good point. So I think we're caught up in the cyclic time of yesterday this time was breakfast, and we've done the whole circles back to 8:30 breakfast again. So it's time for breakfast. So if it was linear, what we do is keep eating prashadam forever. Perhaps. Oh, Vaishnavi, very quickly. Sorry, because I've gone over times. He's playing with it. Those are the two go ahead.
You mentioned about, thank you for the class. You mentioned about time. I remember Ramai Swami once gave class and he was saying, Jambavan, when they were going to look for Mother Sita, Jambavan was saying, oh, last time you went this way and this time you're going that way. So it's hard to understand that the pastime is going on again and again, but it's a bit different. So is it that Yogamaya makes most of the devotees forget and some remember?
I guess so, yeah. Yogamaya can do that, yeah. Pastimes are very... Yeah, I'm glad no one asked me the question, but I'm not going to answer it now. It says here that both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees. What is that the next one? No one asked me about demons in the spiritual world. I'm going to finish now because it's way past the cyclic time of breakfast. So enjoy your time while you're having breakfast. I'm going to last long because we know it will be in your stomach and we'll be doing something else with your time. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, all glory to Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you for your time. Hare Krishna. How do you do notes?
They use Kalia as a jet ski in the spiritual world.
That's right, so many things. They use Keishi also. They take him for a ride. All the cowherd boys. And Arasasura they catch. He comes in the spiritual Goloka. And they catch his big bull. And they catch him, and as he explained, Krishna puts a nose for his nose. See? People ask us why, so when we put nose rings and things for bulls, they do it in the spiritual world. And then he keeps him in the paddock, and they use him for bullock cart rides. That's in Goloka Vrindavan. Very interesting. It says that in the translation today. I'm glad no one asked me. I was ready for it, but I'm not going to answer it now. It says both, without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons